Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. This is our wonderful evening of hanging out with nerds and enjoying ourselves with a drink and asking cool questions to learn about new people within the community and highlight these incredible creators and people within it. And tonight, as usual, we have a new guest. Tonight we have our traveling nerd. It's a appropriate term to say the least. And we're going to ask a whole bunch of questions about what that all means. But before we do so, I am going to give her just an opportunity to say who she is and kind of for a little bit of an elevator speech, and then we'll pick it up from there. So take it away.
Awesome. Well, I'm Erin, also known as Travel Nerding across the internet. Long story short, it's a play on both my day job mixed with what I do for fun. I am a nurse by trade and a nerd by blood, really. It runs in the family. And I just enjoy tabletop gaming. That's kind of become my creative outlet that I have settled into over the years. I particularly enjoy gothic horror, Asian folklore, and just anything that tells a good story. And that's what I like to do.
Awesome. And I made sure that we had a dark and spooky background music for tonight.
Amazing.
So to get us in the mood, maybe a little too spooky. I don't know. See if we run people off or not.
Is there such thing?
I don't know. I don't think
it's
so.
Always spooky season.
Always
Halloween
spooky.
might be over, but I'm just getting started.
I'm just getting started. That was an intense musical string. Right. Like sorry if that kind of caught people off guard. This is our wonderful horror action scene setter from Monument Studios, and so that's what we're playing tonight. If it gets too crazy, we'll swap it over. But yeah. Well, for those that are welcome to the tavern for the first time, the way this works really quickly is it's three people sitting around a tavern having a drink and asking nerdy questions. We're going to start off with a couple basic ones, and then from there, we're just going to see what rabbit hole we decide to dive down in tonight. I have a feeling it's going to be a spooky rabbit hole, but we'll see where that goes because that's what I'm thinking there is. So, to start off, what was your first experience with tabletop role-playing games?
So technically, I feel like I have to take this back to my pre-tabletop role-playing games, to where it really started, which was a lot more akin to LARP than it was tabletop gaming. When I was in elementary school, I went on a field trip to another elementary school that basically out of the school ran science fiction, like Star Trek style bridge simulator programs for like fifth and sixth graders. It was part of our fifth and sixth grade curriculum, and it basically like changed my life. In junior high, I started
That's
volunteering with
nuts.
them. From the back end, started doing acting roles, and I sat in a control room with a microphone and made silly voices. And basically, we told stories in LARP form, and that was really my gateway to what I do now. And it kind of just transitioned from that into tabletop gaming. Granted, I grew up super nerdy. I went to Friday Night Magic at the game store every weekend,
Heck
things
yeah.
like that. I had a group of friends in elementary school. We dabbled a little bit in Vampire, which don't ask what we were doing with the Vampire the Masquerade book in sixth grade, but
Yeah. Especially
I
that one,
really
because
liked
like I know,
really
yeah.
liked my vampires. We didn't
Mhm.
know any better. We dabbled a little bit in like Dungeons and Dragons. We played a lot of like hero clicks though. That was like the
Oh,
big
okay.
thing when I was in elementary school. So like we would literally play hero clicks during recess, and that was sort of my introduction to it. I didn't really get into tabletop gaming until Stranger Things came out.
Oh wow. So it's
Yeah,
been a while.
yeah.
But you've been in the LARP scene for a long time.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
That
Kind of.
that LARP scene. It was a very niche, specific
Okay.
LARP
Sci-fi
scene.
LARP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Sci-fi LARP. Yeah, that's interesting because, like I said, my first LARP scene was, or my first actual experience with tabletop in general was a LARP, and that was Vampire. I was in high school, and that was my first one. So,
And funnily enough, my first was picking up the book when I was 13 because I had just played the Bloodlines game for the first time. And I said, this is neat. How do I do this? And didn't have enough friends to try it, but I read the whole book.
you didn't have any reference. Yeah, that's the greatest part about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was Vampire that you read.
Yeah.
Nice.
At that time, gosh, I don't think it was 20th yet. It must have been the third edition. And I didn't know how any of it worked. The closest thing I'd done for another video game was KOTOR, and they were using a D20 system in the background, and I had no idea how it worked. But video games was the thing for me, and funnily enough, that's closer to sci-fi as well, because it was Star Wars. So, hey, Erin, same.
Nice.
I've run Star Wars before too, just a tiny little bit, but
Yeah, I haven't read Star Wars in years.
That is a little bit of a branching question then. Is the first thing, your first experience in the scene was LARP. It was a sci-fi specific LARP, and then Stranger Things inspired you to take a look at actual tabletop. What about from there? Was it immediately into like a starter set? Did you try to find something more akin to an old classic Stranger Things-esque campaign, or did you try for sci-fi, or where'd you go from there?
yeah, that was a great question. So like I said, like I dabbled, like I'd looked into D&D. We didn't really play a ton when I was
Mhm.
younger, but like I knew it existed. I knew it was there. We tried it a few times. And I knew the concept of how to play. And then when Stranger Things came out, but it was the same kind of thing where it was like I'd read the book, but I didn't have enough friends who like actually wanted to actually play. But then Stranger Things came out, and suddenly like all of my friends were like, "Hey, I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons. Didn't you do Dungeons and Dragons stuff?" And I was like, "I've been waiting for this moment my whole life." So I was like, "Yes, let me teach you how to play Dungeons and Dragons." So I actually started ran a few one shots, but mostly I asked my friends. I was like, "Here's kind of the stories that are out there." I was like, because Lost Mines of Fandelver was sort of the de facto starter module at the time because it was 5e was out. That was the
Mhm.
popular one. But we settled on the probably greatest introduction to D&D, which was Curse of Strahd instead.
Because that's an easy one to just pick up
That's
and go.
yep, that was most of my friends' introduction to Dungeons and Dragons was me saying, "Or I could run Curse of Strahd."
And you said it with that wonderful accent, I hope, because that was
And
definitely the way to do it.
with all the
It
confidence you just
it
evoked
sold
there
them.
too, I
Yep.
think right call.
Yeah.
Now, yet again, another fun spin-off question. With Curse of Strahd being your first game, the first time you tried DMing anything else, did every NPC you tried to act as accidentally have like an Eastern European inspired accent because you couldn't get out of like Brodovia?
So my brother actually makes fun of me for this. When I get really tired and like kind of slap happy and loopy, I default into the Slavic accent.
Yep.
And start talking in the third person.
Look at that.
So yeah, it is kind of my default.
Awesome. That's an interesting default, but hey, go with what works, right?
That's 2 or 3 of us on the call, so preach.
You go Slavic as well?
I do. Oh yeah. Curse of Strahd was the only thing I GM'd for like 3 years, and it was between 2 groups. One group that met every week. We have matching tattoos because we actually finished it without taking a break. It's the sigil from the side of the book. And the very next one that we did, it was The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. And it was supposed to be like a carny, and I wanted to go for something totally different because I'd been doing Slavic all this time. And the very first words out of my mouth were like, welcome to the carnival. And it was like, shucks. Okay, well, yeah, I guess this one's
I guess this is what we're staying the night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny. Wow, that's yeah. I've never actually played Curse of Strahd. I've watched it many times. Being a long-term or long-form watcher for Realmsmith, I watched Into the Mist from literally season 1 until the end, and it was an interesting story to be told. But yeah, Curse of Strahd was never on my bucket list, but I think part of the reason is because I was not sure I could do Curse of Strahd properly, and I was like, I need somebody else to do that one. So
you could absolutely do Curse of Strahd.
I think nowadays I could probably pick up anything and try to do it pretty well anyways nowadays, just because of the amount of experience I have. But at the same time, it's just I had never had the interest in it. Like I like it, but for me, it's like, okay, Gothic horror for me can be in so many other systems. Why are we running it in D&D where I'm a superhero? Like, this doesn't make sense.
That's not unfair.
So, like, I would love to play a Curse of Strahd game in Shadowdark. Like, let's go with dark, gruesome, gritty. Like, let's not play this little kids version of, the game. Or
we'll talk about that later. That's a fun idea, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, or remodel it into sci-fi and do it in like Mothership or something. Like, it would be wicked.
I mean, I'm planning a 1980s Curse of Strahd with some friends now because everybody has to do like Streetcar Named Desire as a high school production, but you also have to put a spin on it. And I love TV shows where it's like, oh yeah, it's in like Gangland Chicago or the 50s, and it's like, well, naturally, I've run Curse of Strahd 3 times now. The 4th time has to be 1980s spin. And
incredible.
I'm running it off of friend of the show, friend of yours, Beth the Bard. Off of her retooling of the module, because it is better. And
it is. She did a really good job.
I need to pick that one up.
It's worth it. Oh, it's in a. I think it's in its either second or they're working on a third like corrections iteration now. Now's the best time to do it. Got to support her on her Frankenstein project. But the funny thing is, originally conceiving the 80s spin on Curse of Strahd, I did it with the WotC iteration, which you eventually turn into a superhero. It's a little bit more by the numbers. And Beth's genuinely disquieting, calm, and like sticks with you horror does lean into the 80s, but as opposed to it being like John Hughes, I'm now like John Carpentering it, and I cannot wait.
That's awesome.
I can't wait to hear about that. That sounds
that'll be
fun.
A lot of fun.
And that does inspire James. I am steamrolling your questions. I'm so sorry.
You're good, man.
Having just been talking about Beth, we normally wait to do audience questions until about 1 full hour goes by. But Arclight Court, another friend of the show, wants to know: have you done any independent writing or homebrewing or independent takes on Curse of Strahd?
Yes. I feel like that's a loaded question. Ark, you know the answer to that. I think really what the question is when am I going to finish writing it and actually put it on the internet? But yes, I am, and I have been for a long time. working on my iteration of Curse of Strahd, which I started calling Tatiana's version as a joke because it was kind of a play on like Taylor's version, and like the Taylor Swift like reclamation of her own albums. But yeah, it stuck
Thank you,
after
Raiders.
that, and I like couldn't actually come up with a better title than that. So Curse of Strahd, Tatiana's version, stuck around, and it was fitting. It is very much like a kind of feminist reclamation of the story. I wanted to kind of, I feel like when they did revamped, WotC sort of put a band-aid on some of the worst of the problematic content, but didn't really address it at the root and try to change it. And that's really what I wanted to do. And really what it was is I wanted to run the version of Curse of Strahd that I wanted to play in. And that was one where it was a little bit more like femme voice forward. I have been a big lover of gothic horror, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, like changed something in my brain chemistry as a teenager. That is still my favorite book to this day. But I think we can all admit that the early roots of gothic horror came from a time where misogyny was rampant, racism was rampant, and unfortunately those things still are. And I wanted to use tabletop gaming, and the storyline of Curse of Strahd is really a voice and a platform to kind of flip that narrative on its head. And so that's my version of Curse of Strahd that I'm working on. So it really reframes, like I have rewritten the story of what happened that caused Barovia to become Barovia, that turned Strahd into a vampire. I've rewritten what his relationship with Tatiana looked like, who Tatiana was as a person. And even like Irina's role in the story starts out a lot stronger in my like most recent iterations of this, because I wanted the story really to be that kind of juxtaposition between like fighting against evil in that landscape of like oppressive gothic horror, because also it felt timely in a kind of parallel way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the story that I ended up with.
Good.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see some of these stories come out in the next couple of years, because a lot of third parties are doing this now, where they're taking what WotC has done and they're putting their own spin on it that makes more sense to the story, or the themes that the story is trying to push, without having all the other issues that come with these stories, right? And I believe that the main one right now, like you would say, is the Curse of Strahd story. You know, it's very misogynistic. It's very pushy for that roles. And both, it sounds like both you and Beth the Bard did very much use that as like, we're taking this part away from it and we're going to change it up. But still keep the themes that actually make Curse of Strahd. Because that's really what we want.
Yes.
We want the theme of what Curse of Strahd is, not what it is. And I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing if that happens in any other modules. Like, I'd love to see a similar thing happen to Rise of the Dragon Queen, or, you know, some of the lands of Ruin of Vecna, like some of these bigger modules where they've pushed
even like
specifically
Tomb of Annihilation. I'd love to see
Annihilation.
Like, people take a new spin on Tomb of Annihilation.
I did that for a paid game. And we flipped it on its. We flipped it literally upside down because we played with all bad players. Everybody wanted to be evil, so they were going to take out Acererak to become the forest leaders of the apocalypse, take over the, like, full blown went evil on it, and they did it in a very, very impressive way, because the first response I had told them was, if we're gonna play evil, we have to play smart evil, not dumb evil.
Yes.
And they surprised me, because it was like 6-7 sessions in before they were getting attacked by zombies within Schultz. They were helping out the leaders of the Flaming Fist, and all of a sudden, like, two of them fell, and the captain was left, and they helped kill off all the zombies. And the guys were like, "Hey, so can you mark down on the calendar or on the map where all the other bases are?" And the captain did it, and then all of a sudden, I get a message on my my screen. He goes, "I'm backstabbing," and I was like, "Oh, this is where we're stepping into this evil now." Okay, got it. So yeah, it was very well done evil, which I was very impressed with, and then we had a lot of personal gain, which my players already are aware of. So everybody had a sire that they were pretty much speaking to on a constant basis, and they all had their own personal goals. And sometimes it made
Oh,
them
that's
fight against
fun.
each other. So
Yeah, that's
so
fun. The only time
yeah.
I've ever run Tomb of Annihilation was like I had the stark opposite, where I ran it purely from the like almost like meat grinder dungeon crawl.
Ooh.
I got it in my head that it would be a good idea to do like a speed run of like the city of Omu and the tomb.
Oh yeah.
Um, 18 and a half hours.
Speed
I
run.
do
That's
not
Speed
remember
run,
the fight with
baby.
the Sararak. I was delirious by the time they fought a Sararak, and I was like, please, somebody just end this game.
how many
um,
sessions was that 18 hours?
one.
That's
One.
what I thought you meant. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, we started
one.
at like 10 in the morning and finished at like 4:30 a.m.
At that point, you want the Atropal to win.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, somebody just either take me out of my misery or I don't know, but somebody needs to
I
end
don't
this
know.
combat
Somebody
really
needs to
fast.
finish this
Oh
combat
yeah.
real quick.
And Erin, just having reviewed your work before you were gracious enough to join us here, it's clear you're a wonderful game master. But just today, I stumbled across Salt and Spellcraft, and James brings up Eve of Ruin, and this is the first opportunity I've had in the first episode I was able to complete before the interview to see somebody do what we all want to do at some point and make fantasy Batman, but also B, you're a wonderful player, and that is Lindsay's individual take on Eve of Ruin.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
While I potentially crate my dogs because they're going a little crazy, would you mind speaking on that?
Of course, yeah. So Salt and Spellcraft is my dear friend Lindsay's channel that they have started on YouTube, and it really was the whole idea behind that project was we really just wanted to showcase tabletop gaming in its like home feel. Like we weren't really going for full actual play. Obviously we have the production, we have the cameras, we have like the sound editing on the back end and things like that, but really we wanted it to just be like a group of friends playing D&D around a table in our friend Lindsay's basement, and we're gonna put it on the internet just to share with the world.
Right.
And it's actually like it's really cool because speaking of like homebrew, my friend Lindsay has done a massive overhaul to Eve of Ruin, to the point where it does not exist within like the Forgotten Realms. We are using Lindsay's entire homebrew world
That's
of
awesome.
Onus that they have been running like a different homebrew campaign in for like, I'm gonna get this wrong, it's been like 6 or 7 years. It's been a long time
Nice.
that they've been running like a homebrew game with a different group of friends for years and have built all of this lore and all of this world, and it uses some of like the D&D cosmology still, and it fits into that theme of like multiplanar travel that Eve of Ruin has. And granted, I don't know a ton about Eve of Ruin because I've been trying to go into it from like a player perspective and not have to like play dumb, which is kind of refreshing. I like not having to know what's going on. It's kind of nice. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's Lindsay's done a really fantastic job, and I know a little bit about how Eve of Ruin technically starts because I did look into like the first couple of chapters when it was first coming out before I knew I was going to be playing it, and I know how much got changed just in that like first chapter or two.
Oh, nice.
So I'm really interested to kind of be able to look back on the back end and see what else got changed once I have played this iteration of the story. And I'm also playing in another homebrew game of Eve of Ruin that has also been heavily modified.
Oh wow.
So it's fun to see different takes on things, and I think that's like the beauty of tabletop gaming is like I'm currently running 4 Curse of Strahd games. Not a single one of them is anything like the others.
Yep. That's awesome too. No, I was gonna say it's really a cool idea because, like you said, you know the story of Curse of Strahd. So that part you don't have to continue to remember in your head, but it's the nuances, it's the changes that you've made throughout the session, and it's what the players have added to each session, right? Like
yes.
we're doing a very similar thing in Icewind Dale right now. Like the area that we've built, our world of Icewind Dale has completely changed. We don't even have 10 towns anymore because the dragon is currently ripping through them. And my poor player Sam here is just one of the many victims that are succumb to my madness. But it's okay.
And what's that thing over your right shoulder?
Oh, this thing right here. This is the dragon.
Yeah.
This is the dragon, and he's about this big. He's so big.
I was like, can you even call that a miniature anymore?
I mean, he's
it's the size of your head.
He's the upgraded version of a Chardolin dragon. There's a story behind it, but my players haven't figured that part out yet. So, but yeah, he's big.
Spoilers.
So he's big.
Oh, yeah, but he's beautiful.
He's beautiful. Shout out to Noble Dwarf Gaming or Noble Dwarf Printing. They were the ones that did this custom model for me. Our goal is to have a live play at Gen Con next year where I get to bring him and do it on stage because that's the only place she deserves to be.
Yes.
So is on stage. But we're hoping. So my next question comes from this secondary portion. So it took you up until Stranger Things to kind of get the idea that you're like, hey, I want to go back into playing games again and all that kind of thing. What was that spark though? Because a lot of, like you said, you played a couple games, but it didn't really catch. What caught? Like, what was the reason it caught this time?
I think some of it was just like fortunate timing. I think it was just like the perfect blend of people who were all excited to play. And my group of players that I first introduced to D&D, who, they were all watching Stranger Things, they wanted to play. The reason that we were friends was because of cosplay. We were all doing charity cosplay work together. We spent our weekends playing dress up as superheroes and Disney princesses to go like raise money for kids' charities. And so I think there was a lot of just that ingrained nerdiness in all of us. And also just like they brought that sense of like whimsy and wonder and like that child excitement
Absolutely.
of playing make-believe with your friends again. And I think that kind of like scratched the creative itch that I'd been looking for. And that really was it. Because like, and I will always say that it doesn't matter how good of a dungeon master you are. If your players don't come with buy-in, you're not going to have a good experience. You could be at, Matthew Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan's table, but if your players don't want to be there, there's only so much even the best of the best can do.
Absolutely.
And so I think a lot of it was just I had the like perfect storm of players who were excited, who like really dove into their characters, who wanted to learn how to play the game, who wanted to be immersed in the world, who wanted to support each other and have this cool moment together. And that I think is what, and I dare say as game masters, that's the energy we all feed off of.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's a good buy-in. That's a good final question that we do for the normally at the beginning is when did you? And it sounds like it was almost immediately after that point that you picked up the game master position. So, now were you game mastering and playing at the same time, or did you game master first and then kind of go back as being a player after you had played for a little while?
Yeah, I was a forever DM for quite a few years. Ended up finally getting to join the player side, kind of as we entered into the COVID years. Played a little bit. Fortunately, really have found like a great local community where there's probably a good like 20 of us. And between that group of 20, there are probably a dozen games going.
Awesome.
And different people are DMing for different little subsections of the group, and we have a lot of overlap and things like that. So I've finally been able to step a lot more into the player role, which I have really enjoyed doing. And then, of course, had the chance to also play outside of my little local bubble because of the internet and COVID really opening up the virtual platforms and bringing them into the spotlight. So it's been really fun.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely something surprising that nobody had expected, that this would be what would happen as COVID would drop, and then the TTRPG space would explode, right? Like
Yep.
that's just for a game that is built behind doors, that is built at tables. The perfect storm of an online version happened at the right spot, and then everything opened up for everyone.
Absolutely.
And now we have friends across the world playing because of this game, right? Like that's the awesome thing about this game. So what is and I don't know if you actually have this answer, but like between Dungeons and Dragons and Vampire, because these two seem to be the two that you're very much, which one do you prefer playing?
That's a good question. Obviously I play a lot more Dungeons and Dragons, a lot more, and that
Absolutely.
really just comes down to, I think, D&D, because it's the biggest, it's the most popular, it's got the most money behind it, is also the most accessible to people.
Absolutely.
It's the one that's frequently featured in actual plays. Like, most of my friends now have seen Critical Role. Even if they've never played, they kind of get the basics of the game. So I like D&D for that. Obviously I love fantasy still. Vampire, I love very dearly. The thing with Vampire is that you have to have, even more so than in D&D, the right group for it. Because especially like the way that Vampire is written to be such about like the personal horror and the like political intrigue on the side and things like that. If you don't have a group of players that are all on the same page about the experience they want, Vampire can go awry very quickly.
Oh, I can imagine.
Or it can just be not satisfying. And so I think that is kind of the struggle about some of the more like niche tabletops.
Yeah.
My personal favorite game is actually Through the Breach, which is a completely different genre.
I've never
kind
heard
of
of it.
kind of a different genre.
So
Through the Breach is by Weird Games. It is based off of the skirmish game that they created called Malifaux. And Through the Breach is like, because they had all of this lore and world building, it really like lends itself very well to a role-playing game as well. So they have a whole TTRPG system created in their same world. It's really fun. It's a little bit Western, a little bit steampunk, a little bit gothic horror, a little bit folk horror, a little bit everything.
A little bit everything. Just
I don't want to put any pressure on you, but if you ever put up a Ko-Fi game for that, I will play it so fast.
It sounds like fun.
Very well might in this coming year. So I actually had the chance to run it at D3 at Sea recently. That was our main campaign, was I ran Through the Breach. And I have a couple of players who were like, I would be interested in like a long form game. So it is a consideration that I have, but it is a very fun system. And I think the reason that I like Through the Breach is it's a system where, unlike Vampire, where it is a little bit more niche in its genre, at least the way it's written to be played. There's always homebrew.
Absolutely.
But the way it's written to be played and the way the lore is written is a little bit more niche. And Through the Breach has, you can kind of go any way. You can go pretty combat heavy if you want to go combat heavy. You can go political intrigue. You can go very social campaigns. My group, we started out, because we sailed out of New Orleans for D3 at Sea, we started out playing the Bayou games, where they were all competing against tribes of moonshine drinking gremlins out in the bayou, in like the most ridiculous contests. And we went from that to like our Halloween episode, where they were fighting Pandora's woes in a town of like zombies. So you can really do all sorts of things.
Whatever you want to do, you've got it.
Yeah. You want to fight monsters? We can fight monsters. You want your old school like Mexican standoff gunfight outside the saloon? We can do that too.
That's cool.
And James, this will be did you play BioShock Infinite?
I did.
I don't know if you liked it or not, but I'm just going to take that you did play it as a sign that this is an RPG you definitely want to lean into, and that's not the core inspiration, but it's a good one, and that's what made me look into the RPG initially. And wow, am I excited you brought that up. Hey, Erin. So
Yeah.
you did something really cool in that in preparing to go to D3 at sea, you catered the content to the location that you were going to. And not everybody does that. It's certainly not a requirement, but assuming that's not the first time you did it, or if it is, then that's very exciting. But assuming that's not the first time you did it, what is your favorite destination band or event specific content that you've had a chance to create just in the process of like ruminating on it, doing your research, and then inevitably getting excited to run it as you learn more?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's something that I would love to do a lot more of. This was really the first time that I really went location specific, more than anything. For the previous year's D3, I did run like a nautical based adventure, but we were like sailing off the coast of Mexico, and mine was very like Southeast Asian folklore inspired. But it did take place on a boat because I wanted that like sense of immersion there. So this was the first time that I was like, oh, Louisiana, the Bayou. And because I love Through the Breach, I was like, I have to run something with gremlins in it. Because
To run something
that's
with
like
gremlins in it.
it's so perfect for the setting. And I was like, I just want that level of immersion. But I have been toying. I'm getting ready to submit it when submissions open for Gen Con next year. I really want to run like a late night game of like Indianapolis by night.
Let's
Because I think it would be
go.
so fun.
Let's go.
So that's on my docket. Is like I really want to do those immersive where it's like, okay, you have people who have been around Indy now. They know these locations. We can make it a little bit camp, even, and do things like that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like vampire one shots lend themselves better to having a little bit of that camp atmosphere because you don't have time to dig into massive political intrigue and the things that
Right.
make Vampire Chronicles what they are. So for me personally, that's kind of how my vampire one shots tend to be, is they tend to be a little bit on the kitschy side. But and I did that at D3 as well. I ran a one shot that was set on Bourbon Street because we'd sailed out of New Orleans. I set it in a club that a couple of my players, when we got back to port and they spent the night in New Orleans, actually went and found and took a picture of because they were like, "Hey, this looks familiar."
That's awesome.
So I love a little bit of immersion if I can put that in.
Absolutely, 100%. Speaking of immersion, Sam's muted himself, but Sam is currently doing our vampire/werewolf campaign in Portland, and there's a lot of times where he will literally be like, "So here's the map, and here's where we are," and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like he's dug all the way into the map zone for that point.
Well, not only that, but when you were in San Diego, which I'm a San Diegan, about a month ago, the one shot that we started, unfortunately, didn't get to finish because I love letting my players run down rabbit holes because I like to have all my games feel like games you're going to come back to for another session, even when you're committed to a one shot with me. But it took place at a notorious location called Balboa Park in San Diego, California. And
I have been there.
There you go. It's a very fun place, and it leans very well into vampire machinations. And I placed it right around the time that things would be happening this year, under the auspices that, like last year, we were going to be getting the Dracula, a comedy of terrors play again, because we actually got it at the Old Globe Theater at Balboa Park last year. But the lead actor, Dracula himself, was slain, and they thought it was a marketing campaign because his body was left drained of blood out in the middle of Old Globe Square. But then they realized, no, he was actually dead. And the local Tremere Chantry, based out of University of San Diego, with its gorgeous libraries, of course, that's where the Tremere would be based. We're just kind of like, we can't have that happening. Try to see if you can discover who did it. And naturally, it was a wereviper, and they were based out of the San Diego Zoo because it's right next to Balboa Park. And just doing silly little things that help the
You
locale
had way
get
too many
excited.
were animals in that one. That was like, you had a wereviper, you had like 3 other
A were-coyote.
creatures, a
Yeah.
were-coyote. Yeah,
It's what we have.
It's what we have there.
But I digress.
See,
That all sounds
we
really
were
fun.
too busy asking whether or not we could, and we didn't stop to ask whether or not we should. That's like the whole MO of tabletop gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a lot of fun, like I said. And a lot of the players that were playing with us weren't weren't new, or were very new to Vampire, which was a lot of fun as well. So
Arclight Court was there. Yeah.
he was. Arclight was there. His
Yes.
wife was there. Most of our cast from Dress to Quest was there, and a lot of it was just our crew. That we never get to play in person, so we were all like, "How do we get to play in person?" Well, let's go to a convention and play in person. So
That's how it is. Yeah.
yeah. So I know Sam has brought this up, and I've always been really curious. But like, how did you get involved with D3 at Sea, D&D and Castle, those types of places?
Yeah. So I kind of long story short, my trajectory. I was going to be a doctor. That was my life plan. I was in medical school. COVID happened. I had a quarter life crisis. I decided to take a break from medical school. And while I was still in medical school, I had gotten an ad for D&D in a Castle. And
wow.
me and a couple of friends were like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we did this? And then it kind of like, escalated from there. And all of a sudden we booked tickets and we were like, you know what? YOLO. Like, we were starting to come out of the COVID years. It was like 2022 when we went, and we were like, you know what? We're going to go. And for me, it was going to be like my pre-graduation trip. I would have been just about to finish medical school. So I was like, I can take a little 2-week leave. We can go to D&D Newcastle. That'll be my pre-graduation trip. I'll come
There you
back. I'll finish
go.
up my last rotation. I'll graduate. That'll be it. But then I obviously took my leave of absence and was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Europe for 3 weeks because I can and do D&D in a castle in the mill. So I also, during COVID, started really watching a lot of actual plays. I had a lot of time sitting at home, having to study, needed some background noise, was just bored out of my mind. Found like a lot of these channels. I'd already been watching Critical Role, but that was kind of the push to like, what else is on the internet? Because I'm caught up. So went down the deep dive of like all these channels, or all of these channels. Found Realmsmith among many of the other ones.
Mhm.
So I ended up playing at Jason Azevedo's table at
Oh,
D&D in a
nice.
Castle. Because I was like, I know who that is. I'm gonna go play Curse of Strahd in a castle with somebody who I know knows Curse of Strahd. And I was like, that'll be fun. Anyway, at the end of that, during that course, Jason and I became good friends. And at the end, he completely blindsided me. I have a like 14-minute video because he twisted the arm of the videographer to be there at the end of our campaign, because he invited me onto his stream from there. So our D&D in a Castle campaign ended really with my character getting trapped in Castle Ravenloft, and I joined season 5 for them. And I was really only supposed to be there for a couple of episodes because Nora couldn't make the first day of filming. And then I ended up sticking around for the whole season. Unfortunately, was not in their last season because I was in Italy when they filmed. So,
You're like,
don't feel too bad for don't feel too bad.
You don't feel too bad about that.
No. But obviously, like, we still keep in touch. And so Jason has done D3 at Sea for a number of years now.
Yes.
And he had reached out to me and was like, hey, would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, absolutely. And then I ended up being able to go for the first time last year for their event. Had a great time, loved it. Had a super great experience, awesome table, great players. It was just a super, super fun experience. And then obviously came back this year. Has started doing more conventions. About the same time that I was in talks with D3 for their event last year, I was also starting to branch into like start playing games, doing my own things. I ran my first games at Gen Con last year. So it kind of just like all took off at once.
It's awesome. And it's all because you decided to just say
YOLO
and just go straight to D&D in the Castle and play at the table.
Yes.
With what I would consider one of my favorite game masters ever. I absolutely adore Jason. We had a great time. I've known Jason.
Obviously, I had a good time because I even went back to D&D in the Castle as a player the next year.
Yeah.
Had an equally great time with the phenomenal Jeremy Cobb. Also a fantastic game master.
Yes.
Honestly, like, they have great GMs.
Oh yeah.
That's super, super fun experience. And you never quite know where a semi-spontaneous trip to England to play D&D in a castle rewrites your whole life.
You say
And
that, but like this has been on my bucket list for almost 3 years now, and I'm like, do I just bite the bullet and go?
Just do
do
it.
it.
Just
Do
it.
it. Next year, the tickets are open, my guy.
Yeah.
The spaces are there.
The
And
point.
I mean, not to like make this an advertising campaign, but I will say if you want like if you got some extra money and you want a real cool bucket list bragging rights item, D3 is doing their like D3 Journeys trip in July next year. You can literally play D&D in Bran Castle, like the Dracula castle.
I know. So, what was it? A month ago, we had D3C
Yeah.
on here,
Ooh, yeah, I know
and
Erin talked about it.
Aaron talked about it, and then 3 weeks ago, we had P. Dave Walters on here, and he talked about it. Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah.
That's
I've definitely had my look at it. Part of mine is like, do I have the gumption to actually make it? And that I guess that was my first thing, was like, do I challenge myself to wait until I can GM there, or do I go as a player first? And I've been really swaying the which direction. I also live only like my hometown where I grew up only is like 2.5 hours away from what the heck is the Mohican Castle?
Oh yeah.
So we actually drove down there for Christmas last year just to see it in lights. But I was like, oh, this is where they play D&D in a castle now. That's nice. I was like, I've been here so many times as growing up.
I will say to that though, something that I think has really helped me grow like immensely as a GM, because like this was something that for years was only ever just like a hobby for me, and really only in the last like 2 years has become something that I do like for money now, is actually playing in these events, like getting a chance to play at the tables of like some of the people who helped shape this industry from the ground up. It really like, because everybody has different styles, and every time I play with a new GM, I'm like, oh, I really like that. Like, that's cool.
You pull that.
I'm gonna do more of that. Yeah.
And I've done that through the convention scene quite a bit. I've had the luxury of playing with a lot of really great GMs. Sam and I were just in a game earlier this month with Luke.
Which one? Oh yeah.
For Mysticon. Yeah, we get to play where Luke Gygax ran a game for us, which is awesome. Alicia Marie ran a game for me last year at GaryCon, which was incredible. Yeah, I do agree with that. So it's definitely on the bucket list. It's probably going to happen. The problem I run into is I have two very large, usually one large purchase I can do a year when it comes to an event like this. And lately martial arts has kind of over trumped that one. Like we went to Thailand last year, and we might have to go, and we're going to Norway this year. So, but I might try to see if I can do the Norway up the hill.
Yeah, there you go. And you're already
on that side of the water, right? Like, we just got to figure out if the timing works for it. But,
I think that's the big struggle for most of us is
big time.
But
capitalism.
And
who knows?
Speaking of money, no, not speaking of money at all, but something else you just touched on. By no means do I think any GM steals from other GMs. We genuinely all learn from one another. It's reciprocal. It's one of my favorite things about this is that not only is it a collaborative effort between the players and the GMs, but like GMs want you to learn from them because all of us playing together helps us to keep playing together. And in that vein, what is the mechanic that you learned while watching somebody else that you've had the most fun adapting to your tables and your personal play style?
Oh, that's.
Are you looking at the?
Are
you looking at the roll dice questions? Because that's like on that.
Nope.
On that set. Okay.
No, that's a good question. I think I've taken. I don't know if I've necessarily taken mechanic things. I think mostly what I tend to absorb from tables that I play at is like storytelling like tips and like tools and things
Mm.
like that.
That too.
I will. There's like a couple of things that I think have really like stuck with me over the years. One of them being from, and honestly, this is one of those things that I like haven't quite really leaned into as much as I have wanted to. But I played with Jeremy Cobb in my second year at D&D in a Castle. And Jeremy Cobb is very much like a theater of the mind kind of DM. Like, we hardly used minis the entire time. And yet he creates like such good imagery with the way that he tells stories. And I think my favorite thing that has stuck with me is his combat music. He uses rock music as combat music, and it is so cinematic. Like, it will be permanently ingrained in my brain. Like, I can picture it as if I had watched a movie, because the way the scene was set up was so well done. We're like in the Shadowfell, we're like, our characters have all died, we're like facing the consequences of the actions that we did in life, kind of a thing. And it was kind of like a little bit gothic horror, a little bit semi Curse of Strahd inspired, but we're in this like part of this creepy twisted land, and the bard has just been reunited with his long dead mother, and they're having this real heartfelt conversation, while meanwhile the rest of the party has gone to go look at this magical item, and everybody of course is trying to touch it because we want to see what it does, but of course we're not allowed to touch it. So chaos breaks out. We're playing hot potato with a magical artifact, and Jeremy Cobb turns on the song Ballroom Blitz. And that was the most cinematic, like, you could just picture the energy from that scene so immaculately.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things that even though I don't really I haven't gone to the point of using rock music, just having music cues like that where it's an intentional music choice and how much that sets the tone, that is one of those things that definitely in that moment, like, and it was something that I knew and I've done before, especially like I did a lot of that in my LARP scene, was using specific music cues, but that kind of like, I don't know why, it just like flipped the switch that it was like, oh yeah, no, I can do that in tabletop too.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense.
I hate to be that person, but I'm going to hit our sponsor for that reason right now, which is our wonderful people over at Monument Studios, where they offer us 5,000 plus professional audio sounds. You can use the code Misfit for 30% off or 3 months free. So, and we use music for them all the time. We have so much music.
I do too. Start playing game players hear it.
Yep.
Every game. And they continue to add and add and add. They just did quick form stuff now. So now we have quick scenes that you can jump into and out of really fast with that they're adding to it right now, which is awesome. But that's what the music is that's going in the background right now. I didn't vet this music. This was very quickly picked music. I will be better at vetting next time. There are no cues in this.
There are no cues on this one. Although you did say cinematic, and like the big, the large like spike for the dark music came out, and I was like, oh, there it goes. That's what I was looking for.
Sometimes it just does its thing for you.
Well, we're a few minutes before we drop the happy hour, which means all of our guests within the channel will be able to ask questions. We've answered one already, but I'm sure everybody's got questions.
They've been piling up. They
have been piling up. If you've seen some that I missed, please, we'll make sure we grab those first. But I guess before we start having those questions asked, then is there any systems? Is there any campaigns that you are excited to run next?
Oh, yes. I think we were talking about this just before we jumped on. Crooked Moon is one that I'm very, very excited about, obviously. I love Curse of Strahd. I love gothic horror, so, folk horror very much in that similar vein.
Yes.
And so I'm definitely looking at running Crooked Moon next. I think I'm going to run it as a home game first.
That's awesome.
Just to be able to really get in and play with it and experience the story before I start offering it like
Right.
on the professional sphere. But definitely excited about that one. And then I'm also working on a little homebrew, like short form gothic horror D&D game, very much based on the real life story of her English name being Elizabeth Bathory or Eshubet Bathory, the Countess Blood. So I am currently working on like a little short run game that I'm getting ready to offer some games for, which is kind of fun because this is sort of my first real departure in the professional sphere from Curse of Strahd. Like obviously I've run different games for like conventions and things like that, but up until this point, as far as like my start playing long form campaigns go, it's been strictly Curse of Strahd. So we're getting ready to try something new.
There you go. That'll definitely change things up a little bit. And I'm definitely looking forward to diving into Crooked Moon. The system sounds awesome. I know a lot of the writers that were added to that project. Some of them
subclasses are so cool.
Some of them are just wonderful and terrible human beings all at the same time, because the amount of the type of horror that those people create is beyond me. But it's wonderful, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
A quick aside. The funniest thing about everything we just said about the Crooked Moon, folks, is that the Avantris team that was backing it at PAX this last weekend are the same people who streamlined bringing Beyblade into the AfterCon party. So we're talking about how creepy their content is and how well it leans into a game system that makes you all feel like heroes, actually being creepy, moody, something that you have to contemplate. And one of the sales managers comes over and he slaps a Beyblade into my hand for the first time in 20 years. And it's the same people. So I love the juxtaposition. You can do both.
Yeah.
I mean, he's part of the team. He's not part of Avantris, but yes, the same crew.
Still.
Yeah. I guess real quick, I know we're about to hit the ending, but you had mentioned right before we started that there is a mechanic that you use at your table. I want to know what that is, because I need to know if I can use it at mine.
Yes. I'm glad you reminded me about this. So this is one of those things that I can't even take credit for, because I like stumbled across it on the internet and I was like, I'm going to try this. And I've kind of adapted it into my own thing. But in all of my Curse of Strahd games, I give all of my players, because it's an easy way to add the things to their character sheet so that they remember they can use it. But I give them what I call the Gothic Hero feat. And the big part of the Gothic Hero feat is it gives them an optional rule to basically like throw themselves in the line of fire and take a hit for somebody. That's one of the things that it does. And the other one is that in exchange for 2 levels of exhaustion, they can choose to automatically roll a natural 20 in combat.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and it is very, very fun. Because I had a game session recently where I had a player character, or a player who was going to have to step away from the game and wanted like a big heroic exit for her character. And we were like, well, we're not going to kill your character, because she's like, if there's there's a chance I might want to like jump back in for a session or two, like at the end with them, just to kind of come full circle. But we had this whole thing where like they had angered the hags in Barovia, and so the hags had come for her soul in exchange. And so one of the other, like her and another player were playing a pair of sisters, and so the other player, knowing even that like this is eventually the end that we're coming to, is like, well, that's my sister, like my character's gonna fight tooth and nail to defend her sister. So used this mechanic not once but twice. And now into the 2024 rules with levels of exhaustion, every level of exhaustion docks 5 feet off your speed, and 2 it's a -2 penalty to like basically any d20 roll per level of exhaustion. So now, having used this feature twice, my player is at 4 levels of exhaustion, has a grand total of like 10 feet of speed, and is rolling at a -8 to everything.
That's where the negative comes from. Okay,
it
that
is,
makes
yes,
more
yeah.
sense.
And then I promptly asked for a wisdom save from one of the hag's spells, and the player rolled a natural 1 and ended up with a -7, and that is the lowest wisdom save roll I think I've ever seen.
Ever heard? Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
probably will ever see.
Yeah, but
That's
with
insidious.
a proper reasoning, though, right? Like there
Yes.
was amazing storyline points that happened before that, and now we've got to find out what happens, at the end when everything falls to shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like about it. And like people have asked me, they're like, "Don't your players abuse that?" And I was like, "Well, not really, because honestly, rolling at penalty scares most D&D players.
Mm-hmm.
It like a -4 is nothing to sneeze at, especially when it takes you 2 long rests to get rid of it.
Yep.
And anyone who's played Curse of Strahd knows that long rests are not easily won.
No.
So it's a gamble. And it lets my players do cool heroic things where, like, in the face of impending death, they can give their big hero monologue and not waste it on a natural 1.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And that brings us into happy hour. So if this is the time where you as the audience get to ask the questions, and we as the tavern keepers and our wonderful host for the evening, or our wonderful guest for the evening, not host, guest for the evening. She can't be the host. I'll sign off.
You're
It's
the
fine.
host now.
I'll be the host. It's look at me, I'm the host now.
And we will answer your questions. And while that's happening, as we're waiting for the questions to spiral in, unless you saw some that we missed, actually we do have a couple questions from Discord, because we are opening up our questions on Discord now as well. So if you are on our Discord, and you have questions, you can drop those into the question board, and we can ask those to the audience or to our guest faster. But one of our other players from our World of Darkness game had dropped a couple questions in it, and I just got to find them now because our Discord is getting crowded.
So Jacob, thank you, Jacob, for this question. At the Bard's Tavern is curious why you gravitate more towards one-shots than long-form campaigns.
I think this is partially like misconception too, because I actually run several long form campaigns, but because they are long form campaigns, I have not had a table open in a while. So the one shots kind of lets me get to new players, but also the like one shot format, even if I'm running like consecutive one shots, lends itself a little bit to like players being able to come and go, because some people don't have time for a long term story, or they just want to try something out. So it lets me kind of like catch that group and hopefully introduce them to something that they can then come back and say, actually, I'd like to play a little bit more of this. And I do have several players that joined me for a one-off and then ended up joining my longer form campaigns. But I think I like a good mix of both the long haul campaigns and the short term campaigns, because there's something, obviously satisfying about playing a game for 2 or 3 years and having all of that time. But there is also something very satisfying about getting to the end of a story, even if that's over just a few sessions or a single session.
Whatever can be satisfied, and however long it takes.
Yeah, so I like a good mix of both, in all honesty.
And are both your one shots right now and your long term, all of it is in Curse of Strahd?
With the exception of Vampire the Masquerade. So far it has been. I have run a couple of one-shots that are kind of like one-offs. I ran Jurassic Park for charity earlier this year. We did Tabletop Weekend for Extra Life, and they played level 15 characters trying to outrun a Jurassic.
Hey,
no biggie.
Nothing wrong with that.
And have you considered dabbling in any of the other World of Darkness systems? I know only Hunter and Werewolf have been brought into the 5th edition alongside Vampire, but have you considered those or some of the older games not yet in the current system?
Yes, I would love to dabble into these. I think my biggest hold up, especially in introducing them like on that professional level of like just opening games to the public, is that, again, World of Darkness kind of like it has its niche feel and vibe, or at least there's a certain feel and vibe in my World of Darkness games that I want that isn't necessarily what everybody else wants, and it is hard to screen for that when you're just like opening a game to the public.
Mhm.
But that being said, I kind of got introduced to a lot more of the World of Darkness games past, earlier than version 5. And I would really, really love to run particularly Wraith someday. That one
Mm.
fascinates me. And that was actually brought to me, like, B. Dave Walters was the one who was like, I think you'd like Wraith, and explained it to me. And then I like went down this deep dive and I was like, no, you're so right. Like, this is so, like, I love this. And just that really getting into like that personal horror and the idea of like your shadows and facing your demons. And I think there's something very therapeutic about that appeals to
Mhm.
me within that realm of ghosts and creepy stuff.
Well, we will talk offline because I can't share things right now. Almost let it out the box, and I'm not doing it this year.
How dare you?
I'm really bad at giving up our secrets for our projects that we have working on in the background.
Don't do
and
it. Don't do it.
I didn't do it. Yay. I'm proud of myself. It's taken me 5 years to do it, figure that out. Finally, it's working. Is there any other setting in D&D that you are excited to dive into?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Crooked Moon already.
Mhm.
And I know that's more like that's third party, but
Yeah.
very much
I mean, it's
excited
kind of
to-
third party at this point.
Yeah, I know.
It counts.
They're
Yeah.
about as third. They're about as third party as like Critical Role is at this point. Like, let's be real, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of third party, I bought like all of like the Dungeons of Drakkenheim. Like, I did their original Kickstarter.
Mhm.
I have the whole box. I have not touched it yet. It's been years.
There's
Who
a
is
lot
the
of,
time?
There's a lot
Someday
of
I'm
that
gonna open
stuff.
that up. Someday I'm gonna open that up, and we're finally gonna use it because that's another setting that I would really love to actually like run stuff in.
Yeah.
And then within WotC, I had a homebrew game for a little while, and we were running in Eberron, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed Eberron. Would love to get back to that someday as well.
Everyone's an interesting world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of that like noir vibe. Speaking of things that I've run that aren't Curse of Strahd, last year at Gen Con, the game that I brought it's a one-shot that I wrote called Murder on the Orient Express. Of course, House Orient being the house that built the lightning rail. And it's very Agatha Christie. And let me tell you, trying to write a murder mystery in a world where people have zone of truth and detect thoughts and detect poison is really, really,
really hard.
something.
Yeah.
So that was
really
a fun
hard.
one.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
fantasy
it was a fun one.
mystery in Dungeons and Dragons can be very difficult because of those types of things. Like,
Yeah.
or talk to animals. Like, oh, where'd the murderer run off to? Hey, Fido, where'd the murder go? Oh, he's over here. Like, come on.
And the way that I addressed that was the murder doesn't actually happen until close to the very, very end of the one shot. And up until then, everybody's a suspect. Everybody has motive. Everybody's looking for a reason. So they're really just trying to play keep away for most of the story.
That's awesome. I like that a lot. Audience, this is your chance. Drop your questions. While that's happening, though, if you will, Erin, do me a favor and pull out your D20.
Absolutely.
Oh, but I have a question.
You have a question. What's your question, Sam?
I have a question. So Erin got her sort of start in this world outside of just being a nerd, and we celebrate her for that, through LARP. And it's my understanding that you still go to galas and balls. And I want to know, with so many of those sweeping the nation, and obviously they're worldwide as well, you have so many to choose from. What do you specifically look for in those events that makes you say, that's the one I have to go to instead of this one, knowing full well that sometimes you got to work and you can't go to balls and events like that all the time?
No, that's a great question. And there are a lot of them out there. And I think it kind of depends on really what you're looking for in an event. And generally speaking, when I'm going to like balls and galas, I actually look for the ones that don't have a lot of the LARP aspect, because when I go to those, usually I want to go because I want to go put on a pretty dress and I want to go dance. And like, I don't know, I just feel like Because I did actually go last year to the second Star Ball in San Francisco, is where it was last
Nice.
year, and that one, like, they did technically have like some actors, but I felt like it was very well done because the actors, like, they played like homebrew characters in like homebrew like fairy courts, and they weren't main characters. Like, the whole point was that you could go do quests for them. You were assigned one of the houses and you were trying to like represent your fairy court. And so if you wanted to, you could get really into like this storyline and like winning favors with the courts and things like that. But it put the participant in that position of like, you can participate as much or as little as you want in that part. But if you do participate, you're participating from the point of being a main character. I personally like the balls where they bring in named characters from known media. That's not my vibe because I'm like, if I'm going to go to these things, I want to be the main character. And I know that's selfish of me, but that's
That's
like,
fair.
I mean, that's why we play D&D, right? Because we want to
Right.
be the heroes. So that's a lot of the times, like, that's what I'll look for. And that's not to say that those balls aren't great. They
Mhm.
probably are some really fantastic ones. I could not say I have never been. But I do know, like, I have friends who have gone as actors, and they are phenomenal people, and I am sure they did a wonderful job. And if you're looking for that, like, wanting to be immersed in a specific world, and you want that kind of like character meet and greet experience, like, that is out there. And I think that's cool that we are getting a lot more of like the variety in the fantasy space where we can be choosy and we have
Yeah.
options.
Well, I think it's
And to your
interesting.
credit, yeah, James,
Oh,
you go.
no, you go first.
I very briefly, in a D&D capacity, I worked at very specifically a Court of Thorns and Roses ball for the Sarah J. Maas fans earlier this year, and it was very much it was probably about half as attended as they planned for, with reference to how crowded the space was, and that made it the case that like the high school dances of old, you had all these pods of people just sort of staring at all the people in character outfits, especially because the Bat Boys brought their wings and they were getting a wide berth. So it's a very different experience when you get to go and be celebrated versus you go and it's a spectacle. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will also say, I'm going to catch so much hate on the internet for admitting this. I hate Sarah J. Maas books.
They're not good. They're problematic. Yeah.
It's definitely not
Oh,
my
I got and then,
cup of tea either.
So if I see a court of anything, you can count me walking the opposite direction.
Walk in the other direction.
Yep.
That is my personal taste.
They get some people into reading, and that makes me happy, but there are so many wonderful alternatives, and when you really dissect all three of her primary series, they're problematic. So cheers.
Yeah. Yes.
I tried it, like, because I was dating a girl at the time, and she was like, "Oh, you should read this. You like fantasy stuff." I was so bored on the like first half of the first book, and I was like, I can't read any more of this. I'm literally like falling asleep every time I read this book. Now, if I want to take it to fall asleep, it's a different story. It's like having sleeping pills, but that's what it is. At least that's what it was for me. But yeah, I wouldn't mind going to galas and balls. I think they're a lot of fun. I don't think, though, that, like you said, I like the idea, though, you can be as immersed in it as you would like to. I think those are the best because they have that storyline element to it. They have the ability to kind of make something from it. I went to a wizarding ball last year, I think it was, and it was the whole Harry Potter thing, right? But you just picked your house, and there was nobody was other than like the three main actors, which was like Dumbledore, McGonagall, and I think Hagrid. We're like the only three really, and it was like, okay, nobody else really cared. Everything else was, you have four groups of people that are going around doing all these little puzzles and mysteries and things like that, and then you came back at the end of the night and you rallied up the points, and it was a lot. I mean, it was just kind of silly, but it was fun, and we had a good time. So, but it was a LARP, right? Yeah. Like everybody was still all dressed up, everybody was in colors. Like it was. I took the approach of doing like how Laura Bailey's one shot was. So like I was playing the character, but like the tie was half down. Like I had biker gloves on. Like I had my sleeves rolled up. Like I was like, I'm not dressing in robes. It's middle of the summer, not doing it. But yeah, it was still a lot of fun. So with that being said, now Sam, do you have any other questions?
I'm sure I can come up with so many questions for days, but I don't want to continue dominating the conversation.
No. I mean, the idea is to give the question away, and then we let Erin dominate the conversation because that's the point of the show.
That's fair. Well, Erin. Actually, this is a pretty good one. So, you are interested in Wraith. And I get the notion that, as you stated previously, one of the reasons why Wraith is so interesting to you is because as a player stuck on that side of the veil, you literally are facing the darkest parts of yourself because somebody else at the table is your shadow aspect. And that's the part of the game that interests me most. What I want to know, because you have a lot of consideration for who sits at your table in a way that both evokes how you want to run a game, but also the needs of those players. And as somebody who's thinking about that, I'm sure you've already put a little bit of thought into this as well. What are your plans to be presenting Wraith potentially to a public wherein you want it to be the experience of people confronting those demons, but you know full well that likely strangers will need to navigate that in a careful way with each other?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I think this one it's really part of a conversation that I'm really glad is coming center stage now, which is about like safety tools in gaming. Because, for a long time, we were just treating role-playing game as you would like a board game. But when you really get into it, if you're really embracing like the role play side, you are literally like stepping into like this character. You are experiencing emotions that feel very real. And there is definitely a lot to be said about that. And like I said, that is something that can be cathartic and therapeutic for a lot of people. I think that's something that I have found like I personally enjoy in games. It's a good D&D session if somebody gets me to cry during D&D. Like,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
good session. And I think a lot of that is making sure that, when I'm looking for players, what I'm looking for is players who are willing to know how to like it is and it sounds wrong to say like push boundaries, but to know when to push and challenge and when we are crossing lines. And I think that is something that is very hard to navigate, especially because it's something that we don't always know in the moments as players. Like, what is the difference between something that challenges me and makes me feel uncomfortable, but in the end is something that becomes enjoyable because of that, like being able to work through that versus what crosses a boundary. And there are some things that are really easy to identify as like this crosses a boundary. And then there are some things that really fall into that gray area where situationally they can go either way. And so I think finding players who are really in tune with being able to speak up for their own boundaries and their own comfort, and then being able to really respect that from others, and that like culture of a safe table, because that's really what I think is going to make or break a Wraith game, is like being able to trust each other. And I think that is my big hesitation about ever bringing it to like a public sphere in the way that I really want to run it, like getting into that nitty gritty, because you really do kind of have to like make sure that you have that framework and a good table cohesion. And that's something that you don't always get to tell right away either. Like you kind of have to feel it out as you go and see like, are we all on the same page here?
Yeah, it might be a recommendation of like, hey, like, because you've now built enough people within you start playing games that you have groups that are going of long term. Be like, hey, I can offer this at as the one shot between our next long term game. Like once you finalize a long term game, you're like, hey, would you be willing to try this? Because you've already kind of vetted those players if you felt like those players would be willing to do it. as a test, because like I said, I think
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't think certain games, specifically a lot of the World of Darkness games, are those games that you can just toss at brand new players without
Mhm.
knowing really what kind of darknesses are sitting underneath the behind the eyes, because it can get really really scary really fast with that without
Yeah.
having that comfort and trust with other people. We dabbled in it. I would say, actually, I say we dived into it our last session, and thankfully, our group has been over the last few weeks really solid in the fact that we all leave a lot of trust with each other. We protect each other and that kind of thing. It made for an amazing role playing moment, but at the same time, it was like everybody at the end of the night was like, "Whoo, this was a lot."
Yeah.
Because you're diving into some, like you said, you're asking some of those questions that you're just like, this is not an easy question to ask or answer.
Yeah, and I think even though it's role playing and it's fantasy and it's fiction, we put ourselves in our characters.
Mm-hmm.
There is always like I have never, even my characters who act like pretty polar opposite from what I would do in public, they still have parts of them that are reflections of me.
Yeah.
And so asking people to kind of dive into that, at some point you are going to hit something that strikes close to home that feels very real. And so having that ability to know who you're playing with and trust who you're playing with, I think is huge.
Yeah. So this brings up a good point then, because I know you've been doing the start playing that games, you've done the conventions life, you've done D3 at C and things like that, where they're like conventions, but they're ongoing conventions for a long period of time. What are some of the things you ask your players before the game starts that helps you model that adventure for them, specifically
Yeah.
for the long forms like D3 at Sea or D&D in a Castle, or your long-term campaign in Strahd?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. For things like D3 at Sea, it kind of really depends on the campaign that I'm running. I think last year's D3 we didn't really anticipate getting emotional, but it did, and that was like character choices that resulted in that way. And I think it was just kind of that, like, the players kind of really gelled, and it became that, like, okay, we can take it that way. And I think a lot of what I do as a DM, even before like that conversation starts in session 0,
Mhm.
when I'm pitching a game, is I try to be upfront about like what is the kind of game that I'm running, what's the style that I'm running, and especially with Curse of Strahd, I make it very clear, like, I am running a version of Curse of Strahd that is feminist forward. This is a version of Curse of Strahd that kind of deals with tackling like what is the patriarchy at its core and what are the effects that it has, particularly on like female and femme characters, and how they're like raised and how they think in these situations, and kind of fighting back but also dismantling it, seeing it for what it is.
Absolutely.
And I think even just like being upfront about that, and being upfront about like I'm a female presenting DM, I am a queer DM, I am a half Asian DM, even being upfront about that, I feel like tends to deter the worst of the
I
group.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I
Everyone
mean.
listening. Yep.
The people that
Mhm.
you don't want to play with
Yeah.
don't want to play with me. So, and that's great. And I think but also being upfront at the same time and like trying to catch the ones who are looking for like heavy roleplay, and being upfront that like my games do have a heavy roleplay focus. Yes, I do love a good long haul, intricate combat session. And we'll have those. But at the core, like Curse of Strahd is gothic horror, and what gothic horror is slow building burn tension.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And that comes from roleplay.
Yeah.
So being able to catch that. And I think, honestly, like I've had really, really good experiences so far, by and large. And I've definitely like had my players who have played, who have kind of discovered, I think, that gothic horror is maybe not for them, which is totally fine. And that's great. But
There's so
for
many
the
genres
most
out there.
part, like most of my players like came willing to like commit to it at like their various levels.
Yeah.
And it's led to some honestly really cool experiences.
Now, do you request anything from your players before they sit down at the table?
Generally, I will send them like a lines and veils form to fill out. And that's something that like I tell them is anonymous. I compile everything for the group. But and it asks a few questions too on there, like what kind of things do you want to see in a campaign? Do you prefer like more role play or more combat? Because that kind of it helps me to see where the mix falls in my players.
Right.
And also I feel like any player who takes the time to like actually type out a response to my free text questions, like if they're willing to do that, they obviously want to play. And I feel like that's kind of a really good screening tool for me of like, okay, if you're not really taking a lines and veils form seriously, I don't know if this is the game for you. Because I want all of the other players to feel safe. And if you're kind of making light of safety tools, my table's not a great place for
that's
you.
a problem.
It's not going to be a great place. And you're probably not going to last very long at this table.
Well, and just out of curiosity then, because some people, without realizing that they might not be taking it as seriously as is warranted for the topics, might go along the lines of anything goes, anything goes, anything goes. Do you have worries when you see those types of responses come in that you would then assuage by following up in some way, shape, or form? Or are those people less likely to find themselves at your tables?
I think I get a fair number of like quote unquote anything goes players. But I've also taken like I think most people have probably seen the standard like lines and veil sheet that's floated around. It's like a PDF form. It's got like the little green, yellow, red boxes that you can fill out. And I have a modified version of that asks like some questions about the campaign as well. That I send people through like a Google Forms. And in it is very like expressly clear that like I'm not even going to ask about things like homophobia and sexism and like prejudice against real life racial features or things
that's a
like
hard
that,
line.
because those are hard lines
Yeah.
for me at my table.
Right.
And those are like a no tolerance. So a lot of the times when people are saying anything goes, we've already like thrown out, some of the
Very,
worst
very
topics.
large.
And now we're asking
very
now
large
we're
topics.
asking about things like, the ones that kind of toe the line. It's like, where's your comfort level with like harm to animals, mentions of eyeballs, spiders, like things like that.
Yeah.
And I find that that's usually I usually don't have too many problems. And I always ask, like, is there anything that you would like to clarify? And I find that most of the time, like, even the ones who say anything goes, like, if they're taking it seriously, they'll put, like, I'm really okay with anything that you, like, haven't already mentioned. And, I always tell them, like, these are the safety tools that I use at my table. And then going into the session 0, I think people can you can see pretty quickly if there's just like something that's not quite meshing.
Okay.
And when you start talking about like what's the tone of the game, things like that, and there are players who approach, and I have players at my table who approach the genre of gothic horror from a little bit more of a lighthearted angle. They play like a very innocent, naive, lighthearted character that doesn't have a lot of trauma. And then I have players on the opposite end of the spectrum that's like, here is my gothic heroine that is like all of the gothic horror
everything.
Yeah, and I think like both of those are very valid ways to experience the genre and the story. And so that's not necessarily like a red flag at all. It's really like, are you going to take that character and still participate in the story? Are you still going to, find ways to bridge the gap between your character and the other characters so this becomes cohesive? And I found that like having that conversation during session 0 of like, we're a party. I, as the DM, am going to give you opportunities. I will not force you to participate. So if you bring a character that does not want to participate, I will not force you. That is it. And I think I feel like that has kind of so far, and I mean, don't want to like jinx anything, but so far I've yet to like find a problem.
It sounds like you have it dialed in. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so I think really it's just having the open conversation about like, here's what I expect, and here's also like what I want my players to expect from me.
Because it's a mutual experience. And I think that's responsible to be treating it the way you just explained. I appreciate all those insights.
Yeah. It's definitely like I learn a little bit more every time, though. That's for sure.
Of course. And I know simple follow-ups, because I'm sure you implied this to some degree, but I'm sure that you check with each session too. It's not enough to go session 0, but before the session, hey, this may be touched upon, or hey, you had indicated previously that anything goes, but when I mentioned this at a previous session, I saw you interact in a way that makes me want to check in with you. And I just get the vibe you do all those things and more. And it sounds like you have it very well dialed in. That's honestly so important and very cool.
Yeah, and a lot of it, like I do a lot of, because we always do like stars and wishes and like a little debriefing at the end of my sessions. And even if we're like we run over and I'm like we're not going to get into the full stars and wishes, like let me quick check in, like what's the vibe? Are we all still like happy? And even like mid session sometimes. We had a session in one of my games where in character like they were yelling at each other. And like
There we
right after
go.
that scene, because I didn't want to like interrupt, and I was kind of giving the gauge. I was like, okay, is anybody giving me the body language on camera that they are like personally uncomfortable? Because I'm like, if I need to, I'll step in. And then like right after that, I was like, okay, just quick check in. Are we all okay? I know the emotions were high. I just want to make sure we're still that's all character emotion and there's no personal emotion. And they were like, oh yeah, no, we're good. And I was like, okay, great, carry on.
Hell yeah.
That's a good thing too, because that would have been way different of the situation.
Yeah.
And we all know that character bleed is a thing, and that people can get offended on stuff, even though it's their character. But
Absolutely.
that's part of the story, is making sure, like you said, checking in with people, making sure that everything is okay on the outside. Things can be madness on the inside of the game, but outside the game is where we don't want anything to bleed over. With that, I have one final question.
Slogan of, oh yeah, I was just gonna say my slogan that my players always hear is, "I'm here to traumatize your characters, not you."
There you go. That's right.
And if I borrow that,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, for your World of Darkness game, that's about how we all feel, so it's okay. It's not your fault, it's the game. So
you literally asked for it. I'm sorry.
I did.
You have one last
I'm
question.
I'm waiting for somebody to get me to cry on screen. I'm waiting for it. So much.
I'm working on it. Here, ask your question.
Yeah. So this comes from Merm. It says, I heard you talking about how much Mary Shelley's Frankenstein shaped an upcoming project, but is there a book that you've recently read that you'd love to dive into the world through a TTRPG?
Oh. Okay, I'm gonna be so for real. I used to read a ton. Ironically, I've not read a whole lot since I tried to read a Sarah J. Maas book. But also, it was also right before I killed it. I always joke that that's what it was, but really what happened is I went back to school, and textbooks kind of also killed that for me.
Yeah.
But that being said, like I haven't read a ton of stuff in like super recent years, but there are definitely worlds that I think are fascinating, that would lend themselves interestingly to tabletop games. One of my favorite authors is Neil Shusterman. If you have not read his books, please do. They are phenomenal. They're so good. The Unwind, technically trilogy, but I think there's like a fourth one. Kind of, it's like a little, I think there was like a spin-off. Anyway,
the Unwind series.
Like if you like Frankenstein, like Unwind is kind of, it feels a little bit modern Frankenstein turned to dystopian, because the whole premise is really about, and it, in a way, it is very much like there's a lot of social commentary in it, and his Scythe series also lots of social commentary. He does these kind of like outlandish, borderline fantasy sci-fi dystopians. And they are so interesting. Like they touch on a lot of they're topics that almost feel gothic horror in a way, that have been brought kind of into a dystopian light. So they're really, really good. Either of those kind of vibes. I don't think they would lend themselves great to D&D, but other tabletop systems, absolutely.
Like Dread.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dread would be fun for most. I mean, most horror games, Dread is like the game because there's already enough tension with Jenga.
Mhm.
Like enough as is. I hate to cut this short, and I've had so much fun talking with you, Erin. But we are at the time. We've asked all the questions. We've done all the things, and now it's time to rise the glass as we call for the last call. Um, Definitely putting my head in the ring to make James cry. Go for it. Bring it. I'll fight you. No, I'm kidding. Real quick, Erin, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on various social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all under the name Travel Nerding. And
And where
sometimes
can they
I do
find you
occasional other stuff on
on
the internet, but
Start Playing Games?
and on Start Playing, you can find me. I think my profile is also Travel Nerding.
Okay.
Let me verify that. But I tried to make it simple when I chose my handle
Hey,
to be pretty standard across the board.
yeah,
But yeah, you
I've been
can
battling
find me
mine.
at Travel
So,
Nerding. Yep. Yeah.
but
Oh yeah, my profile name is Erin, aka Travel Nerding. So
there
you
we
can find
go.
me
So
by
yeah,
searching that.
if you want to play in a game of Curse of Strahd, or you want to play in a World of Darkness game with Erin, go check her out over at Start Playing Games, or find her at your next local convention, or adventure out and do something like D3 at Sea or D&D the Castle,
Ah,
which all
come
of it
to
is
come to
awesome.
Alaska next year.
Yo, Alaska would be so much fun. I got to talk to Erin about that anyways. So we're hoping we can actually come out as either media or come run some games for him as well, which would be awesome. Be great to come out and hang
Yeah.
out. With that, thank you once again for coming to hang out with us on the show tonight. Hopefully we can pull Erin in on a one shot or something like that in 2026. That'd be awesome. I know Sam would be thrilled with adding her to our World of Darkness campaign that we are about to finalize here in the next couple episodes for season 1. But as we know, the creepy crawlies in the night, they don't stay quiet for too long. So we will have a season 2 plan. We are planning for season 2, and there's some big things for that. Without spoiling any of that, come back tomorrow night. Our buddy Chuck is going to be in here painting some minis again. We're going to start painting some specific minis here very soon, as we start getting ready for 2026. And then this weekend is episode 7 of Power Rangers. It's the pre-finale, so like we've got one more episode and the finale for the year. And then Monday night is the pre-finale for the season for Dressed Quest. And we're going to wind these down in December so that we have time to spend with family and friends. And then we're going to pick up and run hard starting in January. But we're looking forward to everything that's happening. And for those that are out there this holiday, I know it's the holiday season for us in the Americas. In America, let's make sure that you have some friends, family nearby to kind of group up with. This can be a hard time here right now. Make sure that you have those connections. If not, an easy way to do it, because I'm always there, is go to our Discord and come hang out. Somebody's always around. But yeah, so stay warm, enjoy your nice beverage, and we'll see you guys all next week for another episode of Tavern Talks. Have a good night.